Modern life has trapped us in a biological loop of chronic stress, screen fatigue, and sedentary work. To combat this, society reflexively prescribes a generic fix: get your 10,000 steps in. But treating walking as a monolithic chore, something we do strictly to burn calories or commute from point A to point B, relies on outdated science. A step taken on city concrete triggers a completely different biological response than a step taken on a forest trail. This brings us to a modern clinical framework known as the walking prescription. Medical researchers now treat walking as a highly targeted medicine, and like any medicine, it requires a carefully calibrated dosage, meaning time, and formulation, meaning the environment. Walking operates as a dynamic medical intervention, and the surrounding landscape itself acts as the active ingredient. The foundational prescription requires 150 minutes of brisk walking per week, in any environment, to secure baseline cardiovascular health. Here's the first biomechanical action. As you walk, the physical force of blood rushing through your veins creates friction against the inner lining of your blood vessels. Biologists call this shear stress, prompting those vessel walls to release a molecule called nitric oxide. This chart shows the immediate result. The nitric oxide induces vasodilation, forcing the blood vessels to widen. This safely drops both systolic and diastolic blood pressure down into a healthy, stable range. At the exact same time, the mechanical demand of moving your body forces specific transporters, known as GLUT4 receptors, to rise to the surface of your muscle cells. These receptors actively pull glucose out of your bloodstream. They do this without requiring insulin, which rapidly flattens post-meal blood sugar spikes. Regardless of location, the raw physical mechanics of walking deploy a systemic biological shield against metabolic syndrome and hypertension. To address cognitive fatigue, the second prescription requires a minimum dosage of 20 to 30 consecutive minutes specifically set in a natural environment. Navigating an urban gray environment actually spikes your cognitive load. You are forced to deploy fatiguing, directed attention just to process traffic patterns, to quickly read signage, and filter out construction noise. Natural settings offer the exact opposite. According to Kaplan's attention restoration theory, the fractal geometry of tree branches or the motion of leaves captures our attention effortlessly. This state of soft fascination allows the brain's executive networks to rest. Neuroimaging proves this. When subjects walk in natural environments, the subgenual prefrontal cortex physically turns down its neural activity, which we can see here as the region cools to a calm blue. This specific brain region is the primary engine for morbid rumination and self-referential sadness. Looking at this accompanying line graph, we see that as the neural network cools down, the body's salivary cortisol levels drop in near-perfect synchronization. We can accelerate this psychological recovery even further by walking in blue spaces, such as coastlines or lakes. The acoustic masking properties of moving water actively block disruptive urban noise, transitioning the nervous system out of a stressed state faster than green spaces alone. A walk through the trees operates as an active neurological intervention, physically shutting down the brain's distress centers. The final and most potent dosage requires a multi-hour walk deep in an established forest or woodland, taken at least once a month. This protocol creates a unique biological synergy. The physical exertion of walking mobilizes immune cells out of the spleen and bone marrow, while the forest environment provides a highly specific catalyst. Trees and plants constantly emit volatile organic compounds called phytoncides into the air. They use these chemicals to defend their own leaves and bark against attacking fungi and bacteria. When we hike through a dense forest, our elevated heart rate increases our respiration. We inhale these compounds, pushing them directly across the blood-air barrier in our lungs and into our circulatory system. The immediate systemic reaction is a massive spike in both the absolute count and the cytolytic activity of natural killer, or NK cells. These NK cells become heavily armed with upregulated anti-cancer proteins like perforin. This chemical upgrade allows them to effectively hunt and physically puncture the walls of compromised or virally infected cells. The resulting state of immune vigilance is highly durable. A single weekend exposure to a dense forest environment keeps these NK cell counts elevated for up to 30 days. We can read the empirical proof directly from the primary literature. Highlighting this 2008 Lee et al. Study from our references, the data explicitly documents how a forest bathing trip increases natural killer activity and the expression of anti-cancer proteins. A monthly forest walk provides the body with an inhaled, highly potent immunological booster shot. For decades, public health advice stalled at a generic target of 10,000 steps a day. We now have a targeted, prescriptive framework that relies on precise biological triggers. You can use a brisk street walk to clear glucose and manage blood sugar. You can spend 20 minutes in a park to silence a spiraling, overactive mind. And you can take a monthly forest hike to systematically arm your immune system. This protocol is entirely scientifically validated, highly adaptable to different schedules, and completely free to almost anyone willing to step out their front door. By intentionally combining the physical mechanics of movement with specific landscapes, we hold the power to write our own prescriptions for profound physical and mental resilience.